the question is slightly in two parts. One that is posed from the public, and I'll read it in a second. The other is, we received of late an email from Mr. Aaron Trevenna, whose main point, I think, is to make sure that we do consider that cyclists in many cases can be the victims of crime. But the more formal question is a related issue that's emerged on several occasions from Cornwall and elsewhere across the force, is how effectively the police ensure the safety of cyclists. A particular concern relates to an apparent lack of police action where other road users endanger cyclists with inconsiderate or reckless behaviour. What action is being undertaken either by police or their partners to promote awareness of dangers to cyclists and improve their safety?
A lot, but I would accept there could be more, and we could do more, and I'll pass to Julie in a moment. On your acknowledgement of reading this letter, and I know when you met, you kindly sent me through a reference to the Time to Choose Cycling report and the Road Justice report on the role of police, which I have read, and much of which I believe is relevant to here in particular. I have to say that both documents I'm not sure reflect the rurality of Cornwall. I find these very helpful documents. They're quite city-centric documents. A lot of the images are of city centres, not rural roads. And as a cyclist myself, and also many of my staff, we seek to cycle the rural routes. And to be clear, I would share many cyclists' view that I don't necessarily feel safe on the roads. The reality is, of course, and is recognised in these reports, you are less safe, and I found it a brilliant line, you're less safe doing your gardening than you are cycling, but you don't necessarily feel safe when you're on the road. A lot of my traffic officers or roads officers will do a lot about driver attitude, about harassing cyclists, but also harassing drivers, tailgating as it is called. And we obviously do a lot of work within schools. The reality is that cycling is a growth social but also sporting enterprise, particularly here within the peninsula with Bodmin and Dartmoor and indeed Exmoor. And increasingly we do see collisions involving cyclists. What the question asked for earlier is that all cyclists should be treated as victims. In one sense, yes, but my officers have to approach any collision with an open mind. In the main, it is more likely to be the driver. Absolutely accepted. But I cannot say to them, all cyclists are victims. In one breath, yes. But when one is trying to attribute fault, I would want my officers to have an open mind. The other bit that I thought was useful in these was the responsibility taken by cyclists to seek a proper and fair balanced narrative, which I would accept. And certainly we have officers on cycles in Torbay. I don't know if we have them in Cornwall, but in Torbay and increasingly in Plymouth, we try and get officers on bikes. One, to encourage the public, but two, it is a very good way to meet the public. I think that's an area where we could do more. We probably do more with the motorbike fraternity than we do cyclists. So we do a lot with the force motorbikes around events. We do work at the Cornwall County Show. Last year we did some work with traffic officers there. I feel we could perhaps do more in this year's show. But the key issue for me is that the intimidation of cyclists is not totally within the gift of policing. It is within the gift of other road users, and it's for them to take responsibility for their actions. This morning, dropping my son at school, absolute impatience by a driver going the other way, luckily for them, because I couldn't get my car around, whereby they are literally a foot behind the cyclist. It is pouring with rain, one mistake, that person's dead. So anyone watching this, think that a cyclist can come off their bike at any moment. Your braking distance needs to reflect that. It is quite clear that that is not the case. It probably haven't gripped the answer as much as the questioner would like. If they're in the room, I'm happy to speak to them afterwards. So accepted that the roads don't feel safe. I can do a lot more patrolling. I can do public awareness, we do. But the reality is it is about drivers taking responsibility for their actions.
Just to say that we had, a couple of months ago now, we held a cycling safety day in Truro, which was well publicised by one of our specialist officers before the event, but wasn't particularly well attended. So there was an opportunity to talk about issues for cyclists. I think we plan to run another one again this year. So all I would ask is that if people are interested, they look out for that and come along. And finally, that activity will be picked up under the road casualty reduction group, which will be reconvened in the county shortly.